Hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm with Jim Sanford. So here's Jim. I've known Jim for about 3 years. He's a good friend of mine, and he's going to show us some knots today.
Johnny, there's a couple of knots that I think anybody would use if they knew them, regardless of their walk in life. I've been a student of knots for most of my adult life, and there's a lot of knots that are pretty much just for knot geeks, but there's a couple. The first one is one that some of you may have heard of. It's called the Bowline knot. And although I've taught this knot to hundreds of Boy Scouts, I was a scout leader for a while, it's the one they easily forget. So anyway, what a Bowline knot is a fixed loop knot. So if you want to tie it around your waist, or if you want to tie it to a tree or whatever, the beauty of a Bowline knot is that even if you put a lot of tension on it, it can still be untied. So if you want to reuse your rope for certain, this is a good knot. So I've got some orange parachute cord. I just brought this because I thought it might be visually easier to see. So when I instruct people how to tie knots, I get very detailed because it's all in the details. The first thing you do is you start with this thing just laying over your hand, just like this. I've got the short end closest to me. First thing I'm going to do is simply make a turn, and that just forms a little loop right there. I take the short end, I come from underneath, I go around this, and I go back inside the loop. And that's it right there. Regardless of how much tension you put on this, if you just release this hinge right here, it unties and gives itself up rather easily. Let me tie that one more time. There is a rhyme that you can use to remember this, or actually more of a storyline. Once you make this loop, this becomes a rabbit. The rabbit goes up the hole, around the tree, and back inside the hole. And you draw it up just like that. The Bowline, that's a good one. Now this next knot that I want to show you is, I would venture to say no one's heard of it. Everyone should know this knot.
Okay.
It is that amazing. It's considered a hitch, and by definition a hitch means you're going to tie it to something. So in this case, I'm going to tie it directly to this piece of bamboo. Would you just hold that for me, Johnny? Just hold it like that.
All right.
Now, I'm going to tie it quickly first because I want to show you that it's not a very complicated knot. That's it right there. That knot is tied correctly right there. But there's one more thing that you need to do to this knot to demonstrate the merits of this knot. And that is, I'm just going to apply tension to these two. And although I could do a pretty good job with just my hands, you could use a couple of green sticks or a couple of screwdrivers, whatever. I've just got a couple of spikes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach this end to that right there. Would you just hold that right there? And then I'm going to put this one here. And all this does is allow me to apply tension to this knot. Okay, now you can let go of that stick.
Okay.
There. Now these spikes will just come right off. And you could, if you wanted to, just cut these ends off nice and short. But Johnny, would you just slide this off the end of that?
Wow.
Now that's parachute cord,
Yeah.
which is pretty slick stuff. But if you want something
That
to
is tight.
be there, that's why it's called a constrictor knot.
That is very tight. Wow.
And it has a gazillion applications. Now, what I want to do is show your viewers how I tied that. I'm going to have to take that off with a spike later. Okay, let's turn it like this so they can see.
Right.
Okay, to tie this knot, it starts out, it's actually a first cousin to a clove hitch. If anybody knows any knots, they probably know the clove hitch. So you take a cross turn just like this.
Yep.
This comes in front of this piece, and you're left with this little X right here. You just lift up the X and put it right there. Now,
That's pretty simple.
I don't think that the average person on seeing this little demonstration is going to go, oh, I totally get how to do it. But this is what I want you guys to understand. If you want to own this knot, it's an amazing time we live in, Johnny. You get on Google, put in constrictor knot, and you'll come 10 different ways of how to tie it. The constrictor knot is your friend. All right?
I like it.
So all you gotta do is cinch that down, and
That's still pretty tight.
you still get it pretty tight with your hands,
Yeah.
but when you put those spikes on there, in fact, when you put it on with certain twine, as hard as I did with the spikes, the only way to get it off is to cut it off.
Okay.
Although I can loosen this parachute
Yeah.
cord.
Wow.
But the bowline and the constrictor knot are a great arsenal for anybody that's going to be doing anything in the outdoors.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Well, Jim, thank you for showing us that.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, Jim, thank you for taking your time out to show us these knots. I really appreciate it, and I consider you a good friend. And Jim, do you have any final words for my viewers here?
Well, you know, I've often said that learning how to tie a knot is fairly easy. You may have just learned how to tie it from this demonstration, but the hard part is remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to remember anything is to practice it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a whole lot of work to own this knot. When I say you own it, it means it's up here. You don't need a book or a diagram.
You know, I was out camping a few weeks ago, and I was hanging my hammock in a tree, and I was tying the cord around the tree, and I remembered how to tie these certain things. And then before I got there, I couldn't remember it. And you're right. I think repetition and learning that doing it over and over again will help you,
You know,
remember it and learn. It's really useful to learn those things.
those two knots that I just showed you, when I say they have stood the test of time, I'm talking hundreds of years. And most of these originated from the time when people would sail the oceans, and these knots literally their lives depended on them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we can learn from that. And yeah, it's
Absolutely.
something you're going to find useful.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Johnny.